What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the solo debut mixtape by Slim Dunkin. Basically, this project is called Built for Interrogation, and it came out in the winter of 2010. Now, the thing about this particular project is Slim Dunkin was basically Waka Flocka Flame's right-hand man in a lot of senses. It was a good concept to kind of get this. He surfaced in like the summer of 2009, and he was the next to blow up after Waka Flocka Flame, who was going to be after Gucci Mane and that sort of stuff. I would definitely look after it. This is a pretty solitary mixtape here. I would definitely have to suppose. Definitely has a lot of quality, and for Slim Dunkin's debut, it does a lot of damage. I'd have to suppose. I was kind of thinking that he fleshed out more later in the early 2010s as far as that pitch kind of happens. He was really only around for about 2.5 years, but I definitely would have to say, that the quality of this particular mixtape hits pretty heavily, pretty early. So it's a good concept to kind of get that. Waka Flocka Flame and some of the Dirt Gang crew are part of this particular mixtape, which is interesting just because Dirt Gang was going to be the next thing to blow up after Slim Dunkin and some of those type folks. There are some folks that I know out of Dirt Gang like Debo and some of those type folks, but apparently there's another cat in there named Day Day and some of those type ones. So it's an interesting kind of pitch to get some of that stuff from Dirt Gang as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, just because there were some mixtapes that were kind of in the early 2010s. Waka Flocka really had some things fleshed out with 1017 Brick Squad as far as that particular kind of pitch kind of happens with it. It was interesting to kind of get to some of that. Or actually I think Waka Flocka's label that Slim Dunkin was on around the time was Brick Squad Monopoly. So it's a good pitch to kind of get some of that stuff as far as that particular stuff kind of happens. I do think that there was at least a promotional single about this particular project. I think if you look hard enough, you might be able to find something that had to do with the song Dunk. Not really heavily sure, but I think that was a pretty good promotional single for Slim Dunkin as far as that pitch can happen. I want to say that Slim Dunkin at least did a music video or two. Maybe not as many as Waka Flocka Flame, and definitely not as many as Gucci Mane, but I would definitely have to suppose that I think there were at least a couple that surfaced in 2010 and 2011 as far as those pitches kind of happen with this. It's just a good concept. I would at least have to suppose. I know that the song Same Shit Remix was kind of a big deal back in 2009, 2010, and another song that I think was a pretty big deal was the song Dunk. So that's a good concept to kind of get some of these, I would have to suppose. But yeah, this is a pretty heralded mixtape, I would definitely have to suppose here. Slim Dunkin kind of in his early stages. And the thing about this particular project is it does kind of help flesh out some drill type music. It does kind of help flesh out drill music that was getting popular in early 2010 as far as that pitch kind of happened before Waka Flocka was getting ready to drop hard in the paint. There is at least one Lex Luger beat on here. There's really not a ton. I was able to tell that there was at least one Lex Luger beat on this particular mixtape, which is the song I Got Shit to Do. But for the most part, this is kind of in the early stages. As far as what drill is getting ready to do. Like Waka Flocka would definitely flesh out this song. Waka Flocka would definitely flesh out this sound like a lot later throughout 2010 as far as that pitch kind of happened, especially with Flockabilly and some of those type things. But I'd have to suppose this is kind of early stages. This is the sort of stuff. This is before Waka Flocka had even dropped an album and stuff, and I think Slim Dunkin was getting ready to be like his wingman in terms of that pitch of getting some of these things fleshed out just entirely as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. But yeah, I would have to say Slim Dunkin does a pretty good. Job of establishing himself as far as that pitch kind of happens. There's definitely some fleshed out kind of songs on here. He does have a little bit of drill on this particular mixtape. There's some good kind of trap type cuts on here, just some early 2010s type trap as far as that pitch kind of happens. The sort of stuff that Gucci Mane and folks like that, kind of a little bit of Future, some of those type folks are kind of doing. It's kind of more strip club and nightclub type joints, but there's also some residential type fare on here. I feel like a real kind of wild party animal that's pretty good at these residential type house party type kicks on this sort of stuff is Juicy J, and I feel like Slim Dunkin kind of takes a page out of Juicy J's playbook. Not as much full blown that he was influenced by him, but he just has some similar kind of pitches to where some of these are just kind of some house party bops on here that just work pretty well for like some house party shindigs and just things like that, just in a low key kind of glaze kind of sense, just of getting turned up in some of those type ones. I feel like songs like Fruity, Fugazi, Gassed Up, some of those type ones are some great tunes to kind of do with that sort of pitch that just do it pretty well. And I'd say songs like I'm Hot and Same Shit Remix are some other ones that do a pretty good job with that, just within that pitch of trying to get some of those. So some good kind of concepts. I would say that Slim Dunkin does a pretty good job of having like these established. I would say Slim Dunkin does a pretty good job of having some of these established type tunes as far as getting fleshed out and making a name for himself as far as that pitch kind of happens. But I think apart from Dunk, there wasn't many promotional singles or singles that I could have really chosen as far as that pitch kind of happens. These are just a lot of residential and nightclub type bops. It's pretty good in that concept, but in terms of like a glaring kind of single, something that like Oh Let's Do It was kind of like, or Wasted was kind of like, or some of those type ones, or Hard in the Paint was kind of like, I don't feel like this project particularly kind of full blown had it. At least Dunk was a good one. At least there's one or so single, but I would just have to say within that pitch, I mean, Slim Dunkin was still getting fleshed out even in 2011. Not to say that he's fleshed out like he's just rough around the edges, but it's just kind of the concept that it just was kind of, it's just not commercial. That's the concept about it. But we'll go ahead and recommend the songs here. There's 21 songs on this. There's 21 songs on this particular mixtape, and out of those 21, I wound up recommending to you 15. So it's a pretty good pitch. We'll go ahead and recommend some of these. So they would be 80s Baby, Dunk, Fugazi, Fruity, Gassed Up, I Got Shit to Do, I Love, I'm Hot, Oh Let's Do It, the Freestyle, Public Service Announcement, Tune Up Man Part 2, Wasted Freestyle, and White Boy Lifestyle. And the Almost song, which is not really an Almost song just because it's a quality song, but it's just kind of the concept that it's on other projects by Slim Dunkin and stuff like that, is the Same Shit remix. So this is also on later in 2010's Menace to Society, which I reviewed back in 2022. I would say to check out that particular review. But then it's also on, like, I want to say the Twin Towers by Waka Flocka Flame, and I also want to say that it's on Waka Flocka's Salute Me or Shoot Me too, as far as that pitch kind of happens. But that is the 15th song, so there's 15 of these. So just to talk about some of the songs I don't recommend on here real quick, we'll get to some of these. So there's just a couple ones, like I kind of feel like the Duct Tape bonus song was just not a very compelling one. This was kind of like trying to be like a homely type trap type song and just didn't really have the pitch that well. Woo Da Kid did not. Brick Squad's Woo Da Kid didn't really wow in that particular song. It was just kind of a dull one that just didn't really have a good sense of approach with like a homely type song. Hood Stars was just kind of like a kind of low key type one. It was just kind of a more ghetto type tune that just didn't really have a good pitch as far as that particular kind of happens. It's not ghetto in a bad way. It's just kind of the pitch that just was not that compelling. It didn't really have like the edginess that was kind of on that. It was just kind of a murky type song that just didn't really have a lot of affability towards it. It was just kind of a more kind of just the kind of more gutter type cut that just didn't really have the real edge about it that really made it jump off the page. I suppose that's kind of one. Didn't really like the beat arrangements of iPop Tags. That was just kind of one that was kind of a messy type one. Had the DJ cuts and shuffles on that particular one. It was just not quite as compelling a one. Just the overall kind of sporadic type beat on there was just not that engaging, I'd have to suppose. Northside Southside was trying to be like a commercial rap type tune, something like Fast Life Youngsters, that just didn't work that well. I kind of felt like Interrogation Room was trying to be like some horrorcore type trap just within the pitch of stuff that Jeezy and Gucci Mane kind of do on some of their more haunting type vibes, and folks like Chief Keef, some of that type of stuff, but just didn't really have the compelling edge about it. Just was not convincing as much quite yet from Slim Dunkin as far as that kind of happens. I think he probably could do horrorcore, but that was just not a good example. And What You Rappin' was just a poor kind of Brick Squad type song. It should have had Slim Dunkin on there. It was too bad that it didn't. It was just kind of the concept of just trying to say that one was not quite as edgy, I'd feel like. So but this mixtape is going to get a pretty rave score. There's tons of hits on here, I would definitely have to suppose. A pretty nice one on here is I'm Hot. This is like a glitzy. I'm Hot's kind of a glitzy night out jazz of a song, I would definitely have to suppose. This is like a decent bop appeal that this song particularly kind of has. And it's just a mini dance tune, I would definitely feel like. And it's a good social kind of dapper kind of hit. This is just a dap kind of song. There's some entry type stuff. This one kind of feels like a house party type appeal, I would definitely feel like. Just some good stuff like that. Just really, it's kind of almost mellow, and like its approach and overall candor is just kind of on the mellow side, I would have to suppose. But it's a good concept to kind of get this particular one. It's just a nice jazzy kind of one. It's just a nice jazzy kind of one for like some night flash as far as that pitch kind of happens. Definitely a pretty ritzy, definitely a pretty snazzy one for like a vanilla kind of mixtape night out, I'd have to suppose. That's a good pitch to kind of get that one. Fruity is a pretty good highlight. This is definitely like a woozy kind of Fast Life Youngsters like commercial ATL type hit, I would have to suppose. This is just a gleaming kind of smoke of you. The song is just a gleaming kind of smoke of you pep, I would definitely have to suppose about this particular one. This is probably one of the more commercial songs on this particular project. It at least has the approach of trying to do it just in a very similar fashion to Fast Life Youngsters, I would have to suppose. This really reminds of songs like Swag Surfing, some of those type pitches from that 2009 album as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. It's a real woozy type one. This definitely feels like you've been smoking pretty heavily, I would have to suppose. It's a good pitch to kind of get that particular stuff. Just a real nice one. It's kind of takes some of that Atlanta sound, something like OJ to Juice Man and Fast Life Youngsters, some of those more kind of pop rap type ones, just within a kind of snazzy sense of just being woozy and stuff like that, and you'd have a pretty good song and fruity. It's a pretty nice glaring one to kind of get. Dunk, of course, is a pretty good highlight. This feels like a promo single, I would definitely have to suppose. This is like a heavy drill hit, I would have to suppose. This is a heavy drill hit similar to Hard in the Pain, I would definitely have to feel like. And this is just an ill club smash, I would definitely have to say. So it's a good concept to kind of particularly kind of get this one. This is definitely something that Waka Flocka and Slim Dunkin were really trying to flesh out throughout 2010. This is just a good example. If you like classic vintage 2010s, early 2010s drill as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, these are just some good concepts to kind of get some of these. Definitely very similar to Hard in the Paint. If you do like that particular song, this is another one that has that same sort of pitch about it. It's just interesting kind of get some of these because this is a classic kind of mixtape cut. I would feel like pretty much one of the best on the album in terms of like commercial appeal. This is a pretty casual song. I would definitely probably gravitate to this one first as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. There are plenty of good songs on here, but this one just has a lot of good casual appeal and just an overall highlight that this feels like a single almost. That's a pretty good one. The song I Love is a pretty good highlight also. This is one of the tape's flashiest beats. I would definitely feel like this is just a heavy nightclub boiler, I would definitely have to suppose, and this is just a dap and kind of stunt song, and this is definitely a bop, I would have to say. So this one is another one of the song I Love is definitely another of the mixtape's best songs overall. I'd have to say this is another one to immediately kind of go for. This is pretty much one that has this is another highlight that has a lot of casual appeal. This would be a good one to kind of start off with as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. I would definitely have to suppose that's a pretty good highlighted one. I Got Shit to Do is a pretty nice highlight on here. This is like a pounding kind of Lex Luger drill gem, I would definitely have to suppose. This is like a grilling kind of evening step out craze of a song, I would definitely feel like, and this song is just overall pretty rev. So this is a pretty good highlight. Definitely enjoy the concept of this. I'm glad there were some Lex Luger beats on this particular mixtape. It was pretty good because Lex Luger was a pretty heralded producer back in 2010. So it's a good concept to kind of get some of these as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. It's a real nice evening type step out type tune. It's a real good highlight. Very similar to Dunk, I would definitely have to suppose. This is like a good Dunkin. I Got Shit to Do is like a good 1-2 punch as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. Just some good stuff to kind of get within that fashion. But there's not a ton of drill on this particular tape, I would have to suppose. A lot of these are just more residential type party type tunes on the similar verge of like, on the similar pitch of like I'm Hot and then like Fugazi and Gassed Up and some of those type ones. But it's definitely some good concepts to kind of get some of those. Fugazi is a definite pretty nice one. This is kind of like an in-your-face kind of house party G-check type. This one's an in-your-face kind of house party G-check type hit. I would definitely have to suppose this would be a things getting started kind of turn up type song. I would definitely feel like it's just an overall nice. This song just has an overall nice sense of pace. So these are some highlighted type ones. I definitely like some Dunkin' on like some house party type kicks just because this sort of mixture just works pretty heavily. I would have to suppose these are just some overall highlighted ones. Fugazi, Gassed Up, I Love. These are all some highlighted ones. I'm Hot. There's just a good, like the thing about Slim Dunkin is he definitely knows how to get you turned up. There's definitely some concepts. He's kind of like a miniature version of Lil Jon. Maybe not with like the sheer carnivorous kind of choruses that get you crazy, but definitely in terms of like the energy, especially in his verses, he's pretty good. He's like a southern kind of Atlanta version of like DMX, something like that. He just has a pretty good pitch of getting some of those type ones just within that aspect. He's pretty compelling lyricist, I'd have to suppose. I actually would probably say he's probably a little bit better a lyricist than Waka Flocka Flame, but he does a good concept of being able to get some of this type stuff as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. A lot of these are some pretty electric kind of house party type tunes to kind of get us some good concepts. But then Gassed Up is another highlighted one. This is kind of a distorted, burnt as fuck kind of house party highlight, I would definitely have to suppose. This is just a residential, usual fare turn up type fun, I would definitely feel like. This song is just some residential, usual fare, I would definitely feel like, and this is just a lot of great turn up kind of fun. So there's just some good concepts about these particular songs on here. Fugazi and Gassed Up are like a good 1-2 punch just within those senses. A lot of just distorted type feels. This one really feels like you're smoking pretty heavily. This would be a great song to smoke to. Gassed Up's just an overall highlighted one. Definitely in like a house party kind of sense, just around the HQ, around stuff like that, the head chords, just things of that nature, just kind of smoking like an evening sense, just stuff like that to kind of have some turn up just in the after hours as far as that pitch kind of happens. Some good stuff. Public service announcement's a pretty good highlight. This is like a flashy kind of night outing pizzazz of a song, I would definitely feel like, and this is just like this is good for some residential strolling at night and stuff like that. Some snackage, some smokage, some overall things like that. Just going to the gas station, picking up some supplies, things like that, getting some Swishers, getting some beers, things like that, those sorts of natures, getting some snacks, Chex Mix, Pepsis, 2 liters, stuff like that. Just a good amount of pitch to kind of have. This is a pretty flashy night song. This is pretty much up there with like, this one would be up there with Dunk and Same Shit Remix, I would definitely have to suppose. It's probably one of the flashier type songs on here. And oh yeah, also I Love. These are some good ones. Same Shit, I Love, Dunk, and Public Service Announcement are some of the most flashy type beats on this particular mixtape to kind of have for like some outing type fare. So there are some club type moments on here. There are some actual moments for stepping out and making it rain, stuff like that, just kind of within the pitch of having like a pretty good heralded kind of nighttime just within that sense. There may not be full-blown strip club joints on here, but I would definitely have to say just kind of mingling and cooling in the club as far as that pitch kind of happens with. There's some good stuff to kind of have just within that particular sense. So some good stuff. I Got is definitely a pretty good highlight. This has Waka Flocka on here, so it's good to get some more Waka. So it's definitely good to get some more Waka Flocka and Slim Dunkin songs. He is on here a number of times because the information on this is kind of minimal. I don't feel like going back and forth to look up every song that he's on, but he's on here at least 3 or 4 times on this particular project. Out of 21, that's pretty good. The Dirt Gang crew is also on here too. So there's some folks like Derez Deshawn. There's some folks like Derez Deshawn, who's also known as Debo, and folks like that who are on here. But it's a good concept to kind of get this. I Got is basically like a jittery kind of house party craze of a song. I would definitely feel like this is a good paced kind of turn up boiler. I would definitely have to say, and this is just a dance highlight, definitely, and this is just a very exciting song. So I definitely like the pace of this one. Waka Flocka completely kills this particular song. He does a great job on this particular one. Just really makes it very jittery and just kind of just frenetic as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. This is just a great kind of turn up type song. It's interesting kind of get Waka Flocka Flame on some house party type tunes because he wasn't always doing that apart from songs like maybe No Hands and then Grove Street Party and some of those type ones, but those were just a lot more commercial just within their sound. This is just a lot more in the trenches and just kind of more ground level and jittery as far as that pitch kind of happens. So that's a definite pretty nice one. 80s Baby's a pretty good highlight. This is like a glaring kind of nightclub gem. I would definitely have to feel like this is just some early 2010s trap cut that works pretty damn well. I'd have to suppose this is just a good outing, and this song is just a good outing for like a vanilla night. I would definitely have to feel like. So this is just some good stuff to kind of get here. This is definitely pretty one. There's some ones like I feel like I'm Hot and 80s Baby are definitely some club type tunes just for like a vanilla kind of night out just within that standard pitch. These are just kind of, they do kind of have like some sneering kind of energy about them, but it's just kind of the atmosphere. It's just more low key, just within the sense of just being a little bit more regular and just kind of standard fare, just not super crazed like Future's strip club joints as far as him getting real turned up and full blown crazy as far as that pitch kind of happens. But I would have to say it's just some good concepts. But I would have to say it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get some of these nightclub type tunes just for like a regular night out as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. So some good stuff there. White Boy Lifestyle is another good highlight. This is like a snazzy kind of house party gem. Definitely, I would feel White Boy Lifestyle is like a snazzy kind of house party gem. I would definitely feel like this is just a low key kind of dim mood pitch that this song particularly kind of has, but it's a great kind of bubbler. Yeah, I definitely feel like White Boy Lifestyle is just a pretty good bubbler to kind of have just within a relative house party kind of sense. It's just a very dim type mood. It's just in a very dim type mode as far as that pitch kind of has with it, but it's just an overall good highlighted type one. Just low key type feels just a good highlight to kind of get. Not really an attention grabber. One of the most immediate songs on the particular project, like Dunk, or like songs like Dunk and Same Shit Remix and I Love and some of those type ones, and Public Service Announcement and Gassed Up and some of those type ones. But I would definitely have to suppose it's just a pretty good highlighted one. It's an extra kind of album cut or an extra kind of mixtape cut that Slim Dunkin fills out the project with just to have a lot of good heaviness on this particular project. Just a good, nice one. Kind of snazzy, I would have to suppose. Just a good, catchy kind of one. I'd have to definitely feel like was just kind of the concept about it. So that, yeah, I would definitely have to say I think that takes care of the particular project as far as that appeal of it kind of particularly kind of goes. So me basically recommending 15 songs out of 21 on this particular mixtape. I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like an 8.75 out of 10. I really wanted to give it a 9, but it's just base. I really wanted to give this project like a 9 out of 10, but dismissed it by like a small hair. I mean, it's pretty packed to the gills. This is definitely a pretty chock full of songs mixtape, I would have to suppose, which is definitely a good thing because I'm glad there's as many hit songs, so there definitely are. I mean, 15 out of 21 is nothing to sneeze at. I would definitely have to say it's just packed to the gills, filled with house party hits and overall rumblers and promotional singles and stuff like that, just as far as that kind of pitch kind of happens with it. Just some real good trap and drill type cuts just within a more residential type sense as far as that kind of goes with it. It's this kind of concept, just like a small handful of songs that just did not quite have the catchiness just about it, but it's not really that much to complain about. This is a pretty quality mixtape and an overlooked one overall, I'd have to say. Slim Dunkin is definitely pretty underrated, especially in today's times, I'd have to suppose. So it's a good concept. The social score I'm going to give like a 9.5 out of 10 because I definitely feel like the social appeal of this particular project is pretty well there. I'd have to suppose it definitely has some gems and bubblers on here that just work pretty damn well. I feel like songs like Dunk and Same Shit Remix, I Got Shit to Do, I Love, Fugazi, Gassed Up, Public Service Announcement, 80s Baby, White Boy Lifestyle, Fruity. A lot of these just have a lot of good social appeal. Waka Flocka is pretty crazed on this particular project. They really have great chemistry as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. There's some other folks out of Dirt Gang that do a pretty good job on here. Maybe they don't have as much distinction as Waka Flocka Flame and Slim Dunkin, but they do a pretty good job of just keeping up with the energy and the pace of this particular project. So it does some good stuff. Slim Dunkin's a pretty marketable dude. I definitely think if he would have lived past late 2011, I definitely think he would have blown up and probably had some albums out just within a certain sense sense. It would have been a pretty good sight to have seen. I just feel like with these particular mixtapes, there's just a lot of social appeal. These are just some good residential type tunes that kind of have like some bubblers and just things like that, just some brewing kind of smoke sessions and just low key kind of mini twerk parties for like the ladies as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. This would have to say within that pitch, just some real good stuff. Some residential strolls at night, just going to the gas station, getting some snackage and just stuff like that. It has supposed to some good concepts. 9.5 social. In terms of the future, that's difficult because Slim Dunkin is deceased, but there are some more projects I'm going to get to down the road as far as that pitch kind of happens. It should definitely be sooner rather than later because I am getting excited about a lot of these, so it's definitely going to be some fun to get this. I would definitely highly recommend fucking with this, even if you don't know who Slim Dunkin is. This is still highly recommended, and just go out and fuck with it, download and some stuff like that, and just stay tuned for more of these. Check out the playlist for some of this stuff because there's definitely some highlighted stuff here.